Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome to the ROKER Report podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen as we finally get back to business after the international break, which means we're looking ahead to the first of 2 home games in 4 days, which brings Preston North End to the Stadium of Light. And to help us catch up with everything in detail, we're very pleased to have the company of George Hodgson from ROKER. Hello George.
Hi mate, thanks for having me on. Good to be on.
Yeah, welcome to the ROKER Report podcast. How are you keeping, mate?
Yeah, ready for football after... Well, to be fair, I was going to say being bored to death by England, but they actually scored 3 goals, didn't they, in the end? So, yeah, the Germany game wasn't too bad.
That's it.
Can't beat Championship, can you? So, yeah, let's get back to it. I
was kind of that close to turning it off at half time, and the only reason I kept it on was because I actually had money on the game. But if I didn't, I would have... And thankfully, I had both teams to score, which I didn't think would happen at half time, but glad I kept it going. But as I said in kind of the intro there, you cover Preston for ROKER, but you know, when I was looking it up, it also covers kind of Accrington, Blackburn, Blackpool, Burnley, Chorley was in there, Preston and Morecambe were in there. So how does that all work, and kind of how long have you covered Preston for ROKER?
About 2.5 years now, so got the job while I was still in uni. Had about 3 or 4 months left there, but managed to get my foot in the door here. They'd started covering Burnley before anyone, because obviously they're in the Premier League. And then jobs covering Preston and Blackburn Rovers came up. It was local to me at the time. I've been a Preston fan all my life, so it's kind of a perfect job, really perfect opening. Managed to get that. And since then we've expanded covering Blackpool as well, since they came up from League One. But yeah, we've got like a news team and a sport team that are very separate, but covering 4, I would say good clubs, because I don't like Blackpool, but 4 decent sides, all going fairly well at the minute, so all at a pretty even level. You know, Burnley a bit ahead, but yeah, good league to be in, and good job for myself.
So, but being a Preston fan, were you always trying to kind of inch closer to the Preston gig, were you?
Yeah, well, there was only ever the LEP, which is the local paper here, and you know, a bit of radio and stuff. So for a new website to launch at the time it did was kind of perfect, and yeah, to get the job was class really while still in uni, because it's such a tough industry to break into. But yeah, going into COVID football pretty much straight away was really crap though. I didn't enjoy that. You know, not having fans on trains and things, but an experience I won't forget. But yeah, can't beat it with full stadiums and things. Going to places like Sunderland, of course, very good.
Well, that's it. So I mean, how far do you go back with kind of following Preston then?
I think I first went on when I was about 5 or 6. Got the bug for it straight away, you know. I think I did have a Ronaldo shirt when I was about 5, but quickly got rid of that. And yeah, had a season ticket for years, worked in a ticket office for about 3 years. But yeah, it's always been Preston for me, and desperate to see him in the Premier League one day, and to cover that would be amazing. So yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean that brings us on to kind of, you know, talking about, you know, kind of those dreams of being in the Premier League. We'll get into where Preston are currently as a club, because, you know, looking at it, it's Preston's 8th kind of successive season in the Championship, which followed 4 years in the 3rd tier, which Sunderland know all about, and you know how tough it is to get out of that. But in the last 7 years, there's been kind of a highest place finish of 7th, lowest place finish of 14th, so quite a narrow window of where they've kind of finished in the table. And on paper, you know, after kind of 4 years in League One, it doesn't look too bad. But on the other hand, you could say, well, it looks a bit like they're just kind of plodding along in kind of mid-table. I mean, does it feel a bit like that at the moment, or can it be considered like a bit of an achievement, considering, well, they haven't been in the top flight since 1960?
Yeah, it's tough, innit? Because, you know, you think on paper we've had 7 years since getting out of League One, never really been worried about relegation or anything, which isn't something to necessarily celebrate, but you take that all day long as a club to be stable. But fans are so desperate to just have a taste of what it would be like in the Premier League. I don't think the club's too small or anything. There's been far smaller clubs get up there and stay there as well. So keep hoping for that day one day. And, you know, Ryan Lowe's arrival did feel like the kind of manager who could galvanise the whole place. And there is a feeling at the minute that, I'm sure I'll come on to this, but he's not really been fully backed as he could have done. So, Preston are never going to have millions of pounds to spend, and they're going to have to find a way to do it. But it seems like we've got a manager at the moment who shares that real passion and ambition to be in the top flight one day. So, yeah, see how they go.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come back onto the kind of the financial aspect in a second. But I mean, talking about managers, you mentioned obviously the current manager there. But I mean, going back a bit, it's amazing to think, considering all that's happened since. But it was only about 18 months ago when Alex Neil left Preston. But, since then, Frankie McAvoy took the reins. He was there about 9 months. Now it's Ryan Lowe. But I mean, going back to Alex Neil, how was the job he did at Preston viewed by the fans there?
Very good job. Did a really good job. Sort of took the team to the next level. Got them playing a way that belonged at the top of the table. Instead of quite defensive before Alex came, and he sort of turned that on its head. Brought some young players through and took them to a completely new level. And COVID was a killer for him. He lost some big players, and by the end, I think it was just too much for him. He'd seen too many players walk away, and I think he resembles someone that needed a fresh challenge. And Preston, he'd probably taken them as far as he could, he felt. And, he's shown since he's still an excellent manager, and I think he's regarded as that by a lot of Preston fans still. And just gutting he couldn't have been the one to take us up, because I think he's an exceptional coach who will go on to do really good things.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if Sunderland fans will...
yeah, I just thought I said that.
But, I mean, you mentioned the appointment of Ryan Lowe. He came in from Plymouth December 2021. So it's just short of a year in terms of how long he's been manager of Preston. I mean, he did a great job with Plymouth, and he did a really good job with Bury before that. But it sounds from what you hinted at before that there was a bit of excitement around appointing him as manager when it came around.
Yeah, I just think football in COVID, fans were watching on the telly, life was miserable, and aside from football, and then Frankie got the job, and it was... Preston fans hadn't been watching very good football for quite a while, going back to sort of January 2020, and Ryan was such a big character. The things he was saying were getting everybody on side. Attendances went up. They've sold 12,000 season tickets this summer, which is the most for a long time. And yeah, he's just a really sort of passionate guy who, he's learning as well in the Championship now. It's a test for him, but I think the two do seem quite a good match for each other. Hopefully he can, get Preston into that top half, because had a really big impact last season when he came in, and this season's a bit flat so far. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, looking at where they were around 15th when I think he came in, and I think they ended up finishing 13th. And 10 games gone this season, Preston are 15th in the league. And you mentioned about that pre-season, and all the sounds that I heard from the outside were all positive about Preston. These record, season ticket sales, and there was a bit of buzz around the club. I mean, has that died off already? Has it?
A little bit, yeah. Probably not towards Lowe. I think there's a bit of frustration towards the owners at the minute. Preston fans know they're never going to be able to go and buy a striker for £10 million. But over the years, Preston fans have seen this before, where a manager doesn't quite get everything he wants. He wanted a couple more players. He wanted a right wing back and another striker coming in, and Preston had a month to try and do it, and they didn't. And when you score 3 goals in 10 games, and 1 goal at home, the mood is going to drop a little bit. But I don't think there's much frustration towards him. A little bit at the minute, because he's promised an attacking brand of football, exciting brand of football, which, obviously 3 goals isn't. But I think there's more people leaning towards, well, you've not got him the players he wanted. So, yeah, Preston need to turn this around in the next block of 10 games, I think, before the World Cup.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, because actually I was having a quick look earlier on, and I was reading the update that the club put out about a year ago on the website. And I mean, reading that from the outside looking in, it seemed to be a message to fans to explain the lack of spending that you've just been talking about. And it was almost to say, well, we are where we are, and the priority is to keep the club stable. Craig Hemmings. And he also added in that statement, he'd be happy if someone came along with pots of money to take the club over and all of that sort of stuff. So was that statement kind of a direct reply to some of that criticism you were just hinting at there?
I think so, yeah. I think they've been planning that for about a week and things, but probably has come as a result of people, getting a bit fed up again, because Preston can't fall into that feeling of apathy and things again, because it's just a it's just not a good place to be. So they need to try and keep the spirits that Lowe's brought high. I think a lot of people are appreciative for what the Hemmings family have done. You know, they continue to pump money in, a lot of money, which is what it takes to own a championship club in this day and age. Preston haven't sold a player for a sizable fee for a couple of years now, which always, you know, is going to take a hit. You know, there was the likes of Hugh Gill and Robinson that went for a few million and things. And I think it said there's 12 million being put in a year off their back, you know, and that is a lot of money. So it's hard to be too, you know, frustrated towards them. But if you're putting 12 million in and not really going anywhere, you know, people start to fear going backwards and it going stale. So I don't think Preston fans want millions thrown at it, but could you be a bit smart? Could you sign a couple for 2 million each and try and get an edge that way? We'll have to see.
I mean, just on that as well, doing kind of things in a smart way. He mentioned in that statement, it was interesting, I read that, he said that they'd turned down a big money offer for one of the players in the summer because they thought that keeping the player was better than kind of reinvesting in one or two other players. I mean, is it common knowledge there who that was and what kind of region the bid was in or anything like that?
Yeah, it was Emil Rees. I think Middlesbrough came in with about 7 million. You know, he's still a bit of an unknown entity, but he scored 20 goals last year, and you know, it's probably under his valuation given the fees being thrown around these days in the Championship for, you know, a striker scoring those kind of goals. So it was a late bid. I don't think Preston could afford to sell him, and they wouldn't have had time to get anybody else in. You know, it would have been catastrophic really if that had been the case. So if that had come in a month into the window with loads of time, you might have seen Rees move on and Preston try and reinvest some of that. But I think by the time it came in, it was a no-go, no-brainer really.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, 20 goal strikers, you know, they don't grow on trees. But, I mean, looking at the transfers, there were a few free transfers, a few loan deals, bringing in a few new faces, like Sir Robbie Brady came in from Bournemouth, and Troy Parrott on loan from Spurs. So how have the new signings settled in and who's impressing so far?
Yeah, I think the players Preston did sign were viewed pretty well. It was just the frustration at not getting a couple more. You know, it seems like you do all that work, you get signings in people like, and then just don't finish it off, which, you know, I know it's easier said than done, but still I can understand why fans are frustrated. But no, Brady's come in, looks really experienced, adds a bit of class. He puts a lot of good crosses into the box, and neither Rees and Parrott are too good in the air, so that's a bit of a difficult one. Fernández looks really bright from Man United, you know, bit raw, you know, it's his first loan, never really played men's football, but you can tell he's certainly got something down that side, a bit different to Brady. You know, Brady will deliver from deep, whereas Fernández will drive at defences. Freddie Woodman is a good signing between the sticks. You know, he could be potentially Preston's number one for the next 5+ years, so that's a big one ticked off. And yeah, Ben Woodburn has surprised a lot of people. I don't think many were too hopeful with that one because he's had a few difficult loans, but you can tell he's come through at Liverpool and he's got a bit of class about him. And then yeah, Parrott, you can tell he's a good footballer, just not scoring at the minute. He's only got one, and he should have had 4 or 5. So I need to see how he goes on in the next few weeks.
I mean, you've hinted at it a few times because when I was looking at the season so far, I mean, it seems like it's the away form that's actually keeping Preston kind of out of trouble at the minute. You know, 2 wins and 2 draws from the 4 games away from home. But they've only scored 2 goals in those 4 games, as you touched on, and they haven't conceded a single goal, though, in those games. And in fact, actually, I think when I looked, it was like 5 of the first 10 games have ended in goalless draws. You know, does that tell the full story, or they're creating chances and not putting them away, or is it just struggling to create chances full stop?
Some of the games have been pretty poor watches, but they have had massive chances to win more than they have. You know, at Wigan on the opening day, Parrott goes through 1-on-1, keeper makes a save, Rees has pretty much an open net, hits the leg of the goalkeeper, it goes off the crossbar. Rotherham, they should have beat, you know, I think Rotherham are a tough team to beat, but Preston should have beaten 3 or 4-0 at home. Can't believe they didn't win that. Hull at home, 2 big chances again. You know, Parrott had one. I think might have hit the bar again there. So yeah, they have created things, and they should have more points than they've got. So it's not a major worry. But the longer this goes on, you know, you keep saying, oh, but they are creating chances. Well, they're still not scoring them. So need to turn around really. And one of those was an unbelievable goal at Luton as well. I don't know if you saw Brad Potts' goal volley there. scorpion kick volley. FIFA kind of tweeted it because it was just a ridiculous goal. So that's something you're not going to do every week. So just need to start scoring scrappy goals, even if defenders from corners and things.
Yeah.
But Reese and Parrott are the main two, really.
I'll have to look up that goal. It might come second behind Sunderland's against Reading in the end of season awards.
Oh, yeah. Completely different, but yeah, that was a good goal, wasn't it, to be fair.
But I mean, those results suggest, like a real defensive, cautious style of play. And I read a quote when I was looking at, from a piece about Preston this year, and it said they're playing 3-5-2 against stronger 3-5-2s. I mean, is that an accurate kind of description of what's going on, and what should we expect from Preston on Saturday?
Yeah, I think that was my piece, to be fair, but yeah. I think it is, because I think with 3-5-2's kind of played the Championship at the minute. It seems like everyone's playing it, and I think that's making for poorer matches, entertainment wise, because unless you've got real sort of nippy, skillful players out wide, it's a bit robotic. It's a bit kind of like Mexican standoffs at times, and Preston's games have been like that. They've been not really been defensively that troubled, apart from Burnley, who had a lot of the ball but didn't do much. And just have you got that bit of quality you see so many 1-0s these days, and Preston at the minute haven't had that bit of quality to edge games. But the defence, to be fair, can't really fault them if they've done what they're meant to do back there.
Well, clearly read the best articles to do my homework, clearly.
Yeah, your words, not mine.
Kind of speaking of homework, if Tony Mowbray's kind of had a look at Preston, where is he going to be thinking that the dangers are going to come from Preston?
Well, Reese and Parrott do carry a threat. Mowbray will know our squad from his time at Blackburn. He had a lot of derbies against him. We got the better of him a couple of times, and he won a few towards the end of his time at Rovers. So he'll know a lot about the players in Preston's squad, especially the midfield. The likes of DJ, Daniel Johnson, Alan Brown have been there for a while. Andrew Hughes been there for a while. Jordan Storey. So I think he'll know the midfield's strong. They can dominate midfields and play a big part in Preston winning games, but that's not quite been the case so far this season, and the strikers haven't been firing. But Reese, like I said, scored 20 goals last year. He's powerful, he's different to a lot of players, and he's a threat. So yeah, I think Mowbray will recognise the quality in Preston's squad, but I imagine he's probably thinking this is a good chance to get back with a win, because 3 goals in 10 games, you'll think if we can score, then we've got a good chance.
Yeah, and just kind of looking long term ahead for this season, going back to that club statement I mentioned earlier, Craig Hemmings actually said in that statement that he thinks it'll take Ryan Lowe 2 or 3 windows before he's got a settled squad on how he wants it. But I mean, if this season continues as it started, will Ryan Lowe get the time and get a bit of grace from the fans to build the team, or is expectation that a little bit higher than that, and he might get a bit of stick before then?
I think the expectations have been generated by him really more than anyone. He came in with a lot of big talk and things which everyone really liked, and then you just needed the backing from the owners to sort of back that up, which has been kind of in the case. Preston have made 6 decent signings, but yeah, I think he will get time. Don't think 12th or mid-table will ever be a failure for a club like Preston. Doesn't have parachute payments, never been in the Premier League. And depends how long the owners stay around, I guess. But I don't think Ryan's the kind of manager who he doesn't want to just stay mid-table season on season. So if that is the case, in a couple of years he might look for a new challenge. I think he wants this now. I think he wants to. He's still young. I think he wants to keep rising up the leagues as a manager. So I think he'll make it clear that he wants to be pushing up there, and that's the same ambition of the fans, which is good.
Well, that's it. I mean, just on the fans' expectation. I mean, is mid-table about par, and anything kind of better as a bonus, and anything worse is a bit of a disaster?
Yeah, I think so. I think everyone will start the season expecting to be stable in the Championship. Preston spent 3 years out of there. 2011 to 2014-15, but before that they've always been in the Championship. It's where they belong. But everyone, I think wants to be top half. Not been in the playoffs for 13 years in the Championship, and seen like I said, Blackpool, Burnley get up there and Burnley stay there, and Huddersfield and Bournemouth, and just a feeling now why can't it be our time kind of thing. So yeah, they've got to keep going. I think Ryan's the right man at the minute.
Well, just looking at the actual game itself and the record going back, I mean, Sunderland have only won one of the 4 meetings ever at the Stadium of Light, and that came back in 2004. Stephen Elliott bagged a couple. Preston have won the last 2 on their travels up to the northeast. I mean, I remember David Nugent scoring the winner back in 2006. But how do you think Preston fans are going to be feeling about the game on Saturday? Do you think, keep it tight, get a point, or do you think we've got a chance of going and nick all 3 points?
I think it's a tough game, to be fair. I think Sunderland looked pretty good after coming up last year. When I said before about 3-5-2s and a lot of boring teams, and what I've seen of Sunderland, I might be wrong, but got a lot of exciting players out wide. You don't really see wingers anymore. They're a bit of a dying breed in this league, so I've kind of liked seeing the likes of Clark and Roberts, to be fair. So I think it's 2,500 fans making the trip over, and I don't think they'll be expecting to win. Probably certainly expecting that Preston will go and compete and make it tough for Sunderland. And they have won games 1-0 away from home over the years, so I don't think anyone will be putting that out of the equation altogether. So yeah, I think it'll be a close game, to be fair, and moment of quality might decide it. As is the case in the Championship pretty much every week, to be fair, isn't it?
Well, that's it. Sometimes the 2 scores first, but we're playing with 2 false 9s at the minute. It looks like Sims is going to miss out again, so it'll be interesting to see.
Has that come today? Or?
I think so. I think it was in Mowbray's latest press conference. Yeah, so I think it's probably going to be too soon for him, but we're doing all right without the 2 strikers. It's just how long can we keep it up for? But you mentioned earlier on, are you travelling for the game?
Yeah, I'll be there. Never actually been there, so I can't wait for it. Should have a better view than the fans up in the gods, so be decent that. What are they getting on at the minute? Is it 30-odd thousand or? Yeah,
we're getting about 30, 35, something like that at the minute.
Superb.
Should be a decent crowd. Everyone will be up for it because the board, like you say, the board's stiff with the international break. So
exactly. I think Sunderland hopefully might come at Preston at home, and that might make for a better game. See how it goes. But yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, should be a good game. But actually, I mean, I was going to say, it tells you a lot. We're talking about those tight games in the Championship, but it tells you a lot that we're talking about. There's a bit of criticism at Preston, and things are kind of bubbling under. Sunderland are positive, but actually, there's only 3 points between the 2 clubs. So I mean, things can change really quickly in this division this season. Yeah, I think this season more than ever. I know Sheffield United have started well, and Norwich are picking up points, but I don't think there's anyone to really be that afraid of. It's crazy that, isn't it, really? 3 points from where we are to you. It's just Rotherham are 6th, I think. Reading might be 4th. Everyone was saying Reading are going to finish bottom and go down. And I don't think there's any poor teams this year. As I say, there's no real standout team at the top. I don't think there's anyone going to be going down comfortably. So if you're average, you might find yourself in a bit of trouble. Crazy league, always is. Well, that's it. Sides like Middlesbrough and West Brom struggling in the bottom 4. Yeah, I mean, West Brom have won 1 game, haven't they, I think?
Nobody would have saw that coming. And but like I said, I mean, when you've got that difference in the league at the moment, I mean, nicking a game and winning and taking all 3 points, it is huge, actually, rather than, picking up those draws all the time, which Preston seem to be doing this season. It makes a huge difference. Yeah, definitely. I think there's so many tight games nowadays, and we've come up short with that bit of quality needed to just... And you win. It stops you talking about like, oh, if we win, we'll be up there. And if you actually do it, and you see your team in the top half, and it galvanises everyone. And Preston have fallen short of that so far, and need to start sort of putting it in on the pitch instead of talking about it. Because I bet the players are sick of it as well, talking about we've defended well, but we've not scored again. Just gets a bit tiresome. So yeah, they'll be wanting to really go after these next run of games starting on Saturday. Well, enjoy your trip up at the weekend, and if you go out for a few beers, I hope you enjoy your night or your afternoon or whatever it might be. Yeah, I think I'm driving back, but I was trying to get a few mates over for a night in Newcastle, but I think the trains are a nightmare or something I've seen, so I'm not sure if that's going to materialise or not, so I'll have to see. Well, have a good one anyway, but on that note, I just want to say thank you very much, George. It's been an absolute pleasure, and all the best for the rest of the season, mate. Cheers, mate. Pleasure to come on. Nice one. Good stuff. Thanks, George. And thanks again for everyone for listening. Keep a look out ROKER Report for all the build-up ahead of the game against Preston at the weekend. And keep an eye on all the usual places for the next pod that should be dropping very soon. But from us, bye for now.